Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. Today, Barry and I are going to talk about parents are people too. Do you know that?
I've heard rumors, yes.
Well, it's really fun. I mean, I know, and I'm a parent. You're not a parent, but you've been a child of parents.
That's
And,
very
and you've got lots of experience with your clients who are parents
yes.
and teaching people who are parents. So this is still going to be a really interesting conversation. So one thing that I really noticed about myself growing up was, and I don't think I'm alone in this, I think many people have a hard time seeing their parents as human beings. They're my parents, and they see them through a certain lens. And I know for me growing up, I was unable to, how do I put it? I didn't know that I could hold two opposing views at the same time and still love somebody. I felt I needed to worship my mother to keep the relationship. I didn't realize that I could actually see her as a human being with human foibles, as well as a parent who was doing the best she could. So I have noticed this and it's tons of literature about it too, about we either canonize our parents or demonize our parents.
Yep.
But we very rarely have that ability as their children to step back and really see them as a human being doing the best they can. That has a whole life outside of their parenting.
It's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So curious, what was your experience? Did you ever reach that stage where you actually went, oh my God, my parents are more than just my parents?
Yeah, I have one vivid experience of that happened in my teens. But I want to preface by saying, when people think about, parents are people too, most people can't imagine their parents having sex.
Yes, that's true.
So that's one of the things I always up in the eyes, like, because it's like, because the thing is, we wouldn't be here unless their parents had sex.
Yeah.
So they must have, but most people, when they were kids, looking at their parents, going, "How gross! How that sort of thing." So that's one thing to put it out of the way first of all. Is that we do pedestalize our parents in some ways, or we'll make them so clean they couldn't have possibly had sex. I think that's one of the things that runs through people's heads. But in terms of speaking to this, what I mentioned as my point, in my teen years, most of my growing years, when I was very young, my dad worked in the production line at Ford's in Dagenham in East London. But he then went to work for the railways. Basically, it was British Rail. That was the nationalised company back then. And he worked his way up through different departments, different stations, and became like a booking agent in down one of the London stations, Victoria Station in London, which is a big station and quite a lot of authority. And he did something stupid, in quotes. He pilfered from the till, from the register. I think it was like £5. It was nothing major, but he got caught. And so he got called up in the office and got sent home. He didn't get fired, but he got demoted. And my mum was very upset with him. Now, sidebar: my parents never argued as far as were in front of the kids. They kept it private, or they didn't do it at all. And so I don't have any memories of my parents getting really upset with each other, except that moment. That moment, my mum was I felt her disappointment, her dismay, her worry, because at that point in time she wasn't working yet. She went to work in the schools, like as one of the what they call dinner ladies, the mealtime sort of support staff. Once my brother was old enough not to stay at home, sort of thing. So my mum was upset because my dad was their only source of income at that time, and I could feel her human emotions, so to speak, and that rift that was there between the two of them. Now they got over it and they worked through it, but that was that moment in time where I just saw my parents as very human, because they made mistakes. Because up to that point, even though my parents weren't ideal and perfect at times, they never made mistakes, in quotes, that I recognized, because I was too enamored by my parents. They could do no wrong when I'm a 5-year-old, and I didn't have any rules to work with. So even though I know, looking back, there were so many things he didn't do right, that was the one instance where I suddenly went, oh, I see now. Like I got very unsettled, frankly, because my parents weren't perfect anymore.
Yeah, well, that's really what it boils down to. It's
Yeah.
really, that's, and there usually is a pivotal moment when you make that shift, because obviously as young children we depend on our parents for our survival.
Of course.
So we
Yes.
do idolize them. We do put them on a pedestal because we want that, they are our gods. They are what protects us, loves us, and takes care of us. So if we were to let reality set in too early that, hey, my parents are just human doing the best they can, that's very it's very shapes the foundation of a very young child to see their parents in that way. And that's why I know for me, I couldn't even until I was in my 20s. No, I wouldn't even say that. I think my almost my 30s before I stopped, I was able to look objectively at my childhood and was able to say, "Oh God, my mum, even though she was amazing in many ways, I don't mean to not appreciate her, but she made some really, really interesting choices. Let's put it that way, that
Yeah.
were very damaging." As to me anyway, I'll just speak for myself, not my siblings. Um, because she was human, very human, and very flawed in many ways, amazing in many ways too. But I could never hold that together. I was like, I had to keep idolizing her to protect the image that I needed, that I created. I needed it to feel safe in the world. And because it had become such a creation to be, it was only within therapy I was able to sort of start to say, she's not a god. she's a human and she's made some mistakes, but it doesn't mean I can't love her. But what I'm thinking about more is also as adults, I've noticed that there's a lot of adults that still, when it comes to their parents, I mean, I'm thinking of some clients that they have this, it's almost like when it comes to their parents, they regress to being like 5 years old again. The
Hmm.
expectations of how a parent should be, what a parent should be, what they, is so interesting to me. Um, and it's just fascinating because they can't seem to um, see their parent as I say, as a person too, with their own likes and dislikes. There's a there's a how do I put this? They're more demanding almost that their parents be perfect than they are of other people.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, it's because they've built this illusion all their lives that you're perfect, and then they want to keep you in that perfect image that they have created for you.
And another thing is that takes on another level because then, as children growing up, we put that idealization of what relationships should look like based upon what they've demonstrated because they can do no wrong. They're not human in that sense. So when we start dating, we sometimes have that overarching like pressure on ourselves to do as good as that or something like that. If that was good, I mean, sorry, that was my one. I was saying real things, but mine were my parents because they were together till my mum passed away. And that the thing is that the fallibility and the humanity of humans, as people, we we own it. We may own it for ourselves, but we don't own it for our parents. So we have this incredible disparity where we cannot achieve that perfection, which is not real. It's not even what they are like. But we, in our minds, make up this illusion, this delusion, perhaps even, of how parents are, which again is not real. Then we try to match it in humanity, which we can't do. So we end up failing to even achieve that. So the pedalization, as I said, it like putting on the pedestalization, excuse me, not pedalization, but the putting my parents up on this high, unachievable level, which some people do in relationship with their partners anyway, but in terms with their parents, makes our dating choices sometimes even more challenging because we believe that's what our standards should be. We should match again.
It's really interesting. I think it's great to hear your perspective because we're really talking about two very different things. One is, I think you're describing, and from what I know of you and experience of you, is your parents weren't, because it depends on the parenting style. Some
Yes.
parents are so out of control in some ways that they parentify the children. The children end up parenting that sort of crazy parent,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they still idolize them, even though they can see the craziness. They deny the pain that it's causing. and they still go ahead and idolize them. Then there's the other types of parents, which sounds more like your type of parents, who didn't show too much of themselves. They didn't show that they may, like you said, they didn't fight in front of you, or so they had very much of it was more of a, what I would consider a sort of an old fashioned way of parenting. It's very sort of a little bit remote sometimes.
Well, much of I'm going to
Not,
counter that. It's remote necessarily.
yeah, sorry, let me put it a different way. Maybe not remote, but they're they take their roles as parents very seriously, and they're in their roles of parents, and the messiness they tend to keep hidden. So
That's
there is
yeah.
that view that will just see this projected perfect image, and then, as you say, carry that on in life, thinking, well, that's how perfect their relationship was, so therefore I've got to achieve that. So
Oh
it's
yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, is also, again, in their lane, so to speak, because it was true for my parents, because my parents basically were born, before the Second World War. So their path they followed wasn't very emancipated, or it's not maybe the wrong word, but conscious. So my dad was very much in his lane of being the breadwinner, the man of the house, do those things, and being very, frankly, unemotional, so to speak. He was doing his job. Because my mom was the one that gave all the love in the family, and that disparity between the two roles was something I couldn't fit in with myself. So it was one of the challenges I had growing up, is that even as a youngster, I knew I couldn't be as unemotional as my dad was and survive. That was one of the things that put me on the path I've been on for the last decades,
yeah.
because I didn't fit the paradigm. But that was the role my dad thought, and I know it's what my dad thought he had to do. It wasn't like he was that way all the time, but he maintained that role because that's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. Very traditional
Yeah.
British upbringing, and also for that era. I mean, our parents were survived the World War II. So I mean, if they weren't actually involved in it, they survived it. They were affected by it, and I think that has an incredible influence on your psyche. But I was thinking about, even, there's, like I said, there's this the expectation when sometimes a parent, if they, rather a child, if they got some needs that were unmet in their childhood, they they continue. Like I said, I can almost witness the 5-year-old coming out in certain clients when they're talking about their relationship with their parent. Yet when they're
Yeah.
talking about, I can see how they're age appropriate, but there is this sudden, you know, um, dipping into this, and I can tell it's just this childhood wound of, my parents have always been this way. They've never done this. They've never, and so this whole history gets dragged into the present moment. Not to say that there's anything bad with that. It's just clear that it's an unresolved childhood wound, that if you are not going to address it and resolve it, it will
Mhm.
always show up in your relationship with your parent and the
Absolutely.
expectations you have of them. So it's really important, if you want, nobody has to have a relationship with their parent. I mean, I know that there are people that come that say things like, I was never asked to be born, so I don't owe them anything. um,
Mhm.
and there's some people that dearly want a close relationship with their parent, but they let this huge, you know elephant in the room of unmet needs completely hijack the present day relationship they have. Or, as I said, this illusion they have created that their parents have to live up to this standard of being the perfect parent and can't be human.
But I also know clients, and I've listened to some recently to listen to some interviews with celebrities where they basically got kicked out of the house when they were in their teens. So that happens as well, where basically they don't even get the chance to enjoy growing up fully with their parents. They get either they leave home because they don't want to stay there, or they get pushed out because of some issue with the parents. So just to say, there's a spectrum here we're talking about here. So even though you and I are sharing our own examples, there's obviously more options out there. But the thing I'll say also, being in a relationship with women who have kids was interesting to witness how they raised their kids and how they were. One was going through a divorce. I remember another one was a widow. So they had different experiences, because one, the father was still in the picture, one wasn't. And so how they adjust and how they work together, I think in some ways it may be, and I don't know for sure, but I have this wonderful suspicion, if a child's parents stay together for a long time, the child may create a different, well, the child will create a different perception of what parents are like and what relationships are like than if they're a child raised by parents who get divorced or widowed or some other separation. So the reality is that we all see parents the way we see them based upon what our own experience has been. And the challenge is to step outside of what that relationship is, to be seeing them as human, because that's the thing about parents being people too, is that I wonder how many children can be compassionate about their parents.
Yeah,
That's what,
yeah, and that's what we're really talking about today is and again, we're not talking about young children, we're talking about adult children
mm,
with parents who are adults themselves. So, but they're having clashes with their parents, and they don't understand why. And that's what I want to talk about. Is that that is it about unmet childhood needs that you're that are festering still there that you can't let go of? Is it because you've created this picture and you can't bear to see the reality of the human foibles of being human? But then there's the other thing as well as like culturally. I know
yeah.
culturally that I've had clients that have um, I've coached young people whose parents have come from another country with a different culture,
Hmm.
and um, and sometimes I think, especially if you're if you're a parent that raises a child in America and you come from a very different culture, if you don't make an effort to 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 help bridge that gap, because the bottom line is you're going to have an American child, and you
Yes.
come on to your values and your Eastern European whatever and everything like that, which is great and wonderful and adds to the richness of the family. But I think we have to sort of um, my children say to me all the time, Mum, where do you live? You know, because I still say, you know, aluminium and tomato, things like
Yep.
that. Like, and then we joke about, hang on, who started the language? It's okay, I can say it the way I want to say it. My children are American, and there
Yeah.
is a different, there's a difference in between how we raise our plus generational. So there's a cultural and a generational difference to how we may raise our children in the UK. So you know, it's being aware of that as the parent that you know your children. I mean, just as we're saying, parents are people too. Children are people too. They're not
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It,
exactly.
it,
It's not letting that child grow up into the person they're meant to be. The expectation of you're my child. I saw you turning into this. I saw you becoming this. It's like no, you've had your life. It's their life.
from a spiritual perspective, from just quoting from the prophet, it talks about how children come through us, not from us.
Hmm.
And so I think it's such an interesting paradigm because most parents, frankly, didn't have parenting education themselves in any way. So they learned from their parents the way they did, or just by guessing. So recognizing, because again, we're human, and with humanity comes fallibility and in imperfection. There's a sense of grace that I wish we could all extend to each other, both as a child or as a parent, because we really are doing the best we can with what we know. And there's so much that we could, quote, do better if we knew better,
Hmm.
because it's the way life is. That's true for everything, relationships, for all sorts of things. But
Hmm.
having the willingness to stop and respond to what's happening versus just react to what's happening out of instinct or out of just patterning is part of the shift. And of course, that piece applies to everything in life anyway, but just in terms of parenting, and being a parent is seeing through that lens may take the pressure off or the heat off of the upset that might be otherwise brewing inside, because a parent should be one way, they're doing something different. And we realize in a moment, oh, hang on, they're people too. I can drop that whole thing.
Yeah,
The challenge of that.
exactly. Just because they gave birth to you doesn't mean you, you oh, a weird echo here, that
Yeah,
you could possibly, you know, treat them differently than you would any other human being.
right.
I think that's something important is for both, as we say, children and parents, is to is to yes, I think that obviously that parent-child dynamic is wonderful and beautiful and is very rich and very deep, but it can also become that there's less of a filter how you, of your expectations and how you treat each other, because the familiarity, literally, you are family, so therefore there's less of a guard there of how you would treat somebody.
Right.
Um, Something else I was going to say. On the other thing is, I think, and it's so true. I mean, we've often said this, like, sometimes when your children sort of um, have these expectations or whatever, we sort of sit back and think, wait till you have your own children, you'll see, you'll understand.
Visiting them, yeah, how nice.
It's it's like they don't get it because they've never been a parent. You can't. I mean, it's very hard to put yourself in other people's shoes most of the time anyway. But when it comes to something like parenting, it is hard to put yourself in their shoes unless. But I know so many people that have their own children, and they go, oh, now I know what my mum went through or my father went through.
That's the thing is you can't imagine what it's like until you're on the other side, like the shoes, so to speak. It is such a paradigm shift for people. So yeah,
You have to wait 20 years for them to get it. Well, there was a fabulous quote, I've forgotten it now, but it was basically like um, somebody saying something like, I didn't used to like my father when I was a teenager, and now I'm in my 40s, he's finally grown up. And but,
yeah,
but basically, he's the one that's grown up. His father was his father. But
yeah.
the other thing is I want to talk about is as parents age, they're also facing issues that, again, that you cannot conceive of as an adult child. You can't understand what it feels like to be aging, to have physical illnesses, to be concerned about your future and things like that as you're reaching a stage in life where it's not so easy to just swap and change and do something different and take off and try another career. I mean, you reach a certain point where the options are a little slimmer, and that can
Mhm.
affect, the psyche of your parent. And when we don't allow our parents to have that human experience and to experience that fear and experience that, fear of the unknown, fear of what's to come, fear of the future, whatever like that, that there is also a misunderstanding there, or a lack of understanding, not a misunderstanding, because they're in a different stage of life.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes. This is the thing that I know we made this point 17 times through this conversation, but the reality is our parents are in fact human, and also as parents ourselves, we are human, and so are our children. And it is such an opportunity for us to become more compassionate, and frankly, with ourselves, because we've been in both roles, if we're a parent, of being the child and the parent. So recognizing that perfection is not possible. It's only possible in the imperfection, meaning we do the best we can with what we know how. And with that, we can um, make a difference in a way that is more additive versus judgmental and controlling and limiting. And the thing is, being a parent, which I have not done, just to begin again, to be clear, I have not done that role yet in my life. I've been a temporary stepdad in a couple of cases, but I wasn't really parenting. To know that there is a gift we have, a responsibility to give to our children, that is to be compassionate, to be kind, to be a role model in a way, but also being like disciplining as well. So we give them a framework and a structure to play in. But the best parents aren't always perfect either. So we do what we can. We do what we can as parents, and as children, there's always room for improvement. I think for us as children to be better children, because we don't know what we're doing half the time. We are, and so we're testing limits and we're testing boundaries and we're pushing on things and we're stepping on toes and we're doing all these things because as kids we're still learning where we fit into the world. And a parent who can stay neutral in that case is a master.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well. I mean, I'm laughing because I'm thinking, and the same thing with parents. You've never been a parent of a young child before. Then you've been a parent of a toddler, or a teenager, or a grown up. I mean, that you are constantly evolving as a parent as well, constantly changing, constantly responding differently, seeing your children become autonomous and adults. And I mean, they're obviously autonomous, even though I know they come through as they're not ours. I mean, as the prophet, as you said, Hildebrand says, they come through us. We're just the bow, they're the arrow, and we give them hopefully that lovely little sort of shot off into the universe. But at the same time, too, and we should have titled this "Parents and Children of People" too. But
In a way.
it's that sort of holding each other responsible as you both become adults. It's like I'm not responsible for, I did the best I could as a parent, but the choices that my adult children are making are their choices.
Hmm.
And if those choices are choices that I think could be sort of not the best choices they're making, to not beat ourselves up about that, just to know that we did the best we could, but they are adults and they are making their own choices. And the same, the other way around, is that children, you're not responsible for parenting your parents, because that
Yes.
can often happen. There's a role reversal that happens where they
Yeah.
look at you as old and doddery, and now they're in charge of you and what you think and how you behave. And it can
Well,
go the other way.
it feels like a bit like payback in a way. It's like, the parents have raised the kids when they're a baby in diapers. Now you're helping your parents who are now in diapers.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you're going to at home.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good reminder to step out of the roles,
Hmm.
to step out of the role of parent and just see your child as a separate human being. And the
Yes.
same thing as a child, to step out of that role of you're my parent, and just have that awareness of it. Would I
True.
treat a human being like this? Would I have the same expectations of another human being? Would
Yeah.
I be so yeah, demanding or entitled, even both ways. Again, as we say, a parent not respecting boundaries with a child and feeling entitled to just keep telling that child how to live their life, even though they're an adult. Or the other way around, as you said, payback is the child telling the parent how to live their life and
Yeah.
what they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. I know this is definitely a conversation that many people might want to have with their spouses and with their parents or with their children, to consider moving into a human human relationship
Mhm.
versus personalizing and having one above the other or anything else. Because again, it's like the grace we give each other when we have compassion for their role and not judge them because they don't do things perfectly the way we think they should do them. That's a gift that can change any relationship. And so to be able to do that with a parent or do with a child could heal so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've about one up.
Indeed.
I love what
Yeah.
you just said, and it's like it's just step out of the roles and just reevaluate. Would I be reacting or saying or doing the same things if I wasn't if this wasn't my title of
Right.
or child? So,
The homework for the viewer.
yeah. All right. Thanks, Barry. I will see you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
See you.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well, so go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.